I'm sure people would love to listen to it. All right. Ladies and gents, welcome aboard to the Captain Crypto Show. It's Tuesday night, which means it's time for our weekly Captain's Council, where we go over the latest and greatest in the world of cryptocurrency and blockchain tech. To round out the council tonight, first off to my left, we got the CEO and founder of Coinstructive, a blockchain tech consultancy company based here in San Diego, but he's also the reigning, defending, long-standing San Diego Bitcoin meetup organizer. Chris, welcome aboard.
Thanks for having me.
And Jacob, off to my right, we got our young gun coming up from south of the border. I'd say welcome, but I guess it's more like bienvenida al programa, Jacobo.
What's up, guys?
All right. So we have plenty of... make sure you talk to the microphone close. So we have plenty of stories to discuss. As usual, it's just another... how would you say it, another week of cryptocurrency craziness. But I'm actually going to start off with a little bit of an anecdote, and this one's a little bit more of a personal story, and it might be one that some of you guys can relate to. And for those of you who can't relate, it might be something where you will start to be able to relate to it relatively soon. So it's no secret on this show that I'm looking to increase the production value. Within the last month or so, we have started transitioning toward audio only to doing things with video and actually doing things live. And in order to continue to increase the production value of the show, we've had to buy equipment. We will have to buy more equipment. You know, there's a question of setting up a good set to make sure that we have a good area where we can record the show. And these are all things that they take resources, they take time, they take money, and there's a lot of effort that goes into it. So recently, I kind of had to make a sort of decision. So I call myself Captain Crypto, and you can't really call yourself Captain Crypto unless you own some cryptocurrency, right? At least a significant amount. So the question was, okay, do I want to pay for some of this new equipment, some of this new set-related items? Do I want to pay for that with my cryptocurrency, or do I want to try to find a way to pay for it with fiat? And I know the problem is that right now, in my opinion, cryptocurrency is relatively down. So it doesn't necessarily make sense for me to pull money out of my cryptocurrency because, in my opinion, that cryptocurrency is going to be going up. So the alternative really was to take a look at applying for a loan. So believe it or not, I do still have a traditional banking account. It's with Wells Fargo. So I went in and talked to them about taking out a loan. It's not a ton of money, but a significant amount. And, well, I guess for starters, they were telling me that there's different ways you can do it. Ultimately, I decided to do a personal loan. And for the record, I have decent credit. But so I did do the application, and a week later, I get the letter back, and it says rejected. So I was a little bit surprised because my credit's been pretty good for a very long time, but there are certain factors in my lifestyle that made it less likely that I was able to actually get a loan. For starters, the amount of funds that go in and out, US dollars, funds that go in and out of my Wells Fargo checking account is really low. And that's partially because I work at Edge. I get paid in Bitcoin. I try to keep as much money in cryptocurrency as I can. Mm-hmm. And then also the current balance at any given moment is usually pretty low. Like at this point, it is really low. Mm-hmm. But again, if I think cryptocurrency is going to have good returns, then it makes sense for me not to keep money in fiat, right? To me, that's actually kind of like losing value versus something that's appreciating.
Is that really a factor that the balance you have? I mean, you weren't applying for hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? I think if it's a business, I think they might care about that. But
I think it was something that was enumerated in the list of things,
really?
Reasons. Yes, that's what I remember.
Low account balance, huh?
Yeah, that is. They look at a bunch of things. Let's see here. Yeah, so it's interesting because they're like, okay, you don't have much collateral, like I don't own a house, but also it's kind of interesting because cryptocurrency, they don't accept it as a form of like collateral. So just in general, I'm finding that my lifestyle, I'm in this kind of transition period. Maybe the industry's in a transition period because right now, if I wanted to try to get a fiat loan using cryptocurrency as collateral, I can't really do that. I know there's some businesses out there. I know Salt's trying to do it.
I've I've been really trying to get a loan from Salt, or just trying to use their system with the smallest amount possible, but it isn't ready.
Yeah, and they're not taking any more applicants at this point, and I know they only do it in certain states as well. So it was one of these things where it's like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? The other thing was with Wells Fargo, they're like, oh, well, maybe you could do a business loan. You have to have a
Business entity.
Yeah, you have to have a business entity, but it's not just that. There's so much paperwork involved with creating a business, and then once you create it, they say every year you have to do some sort of registration thing.
No, and if you register in California, you got to pay this $800 thing and this and that. It's just you can definitely do it all if you're going to do a significant loan, and it can make sense, and it can end up being worth it, but yeah, it's not easy.
Yes, so I guess the takeaway, and I'm wondering what your guys' experiences are with this. I know, Jacob, you probably have a lot of experience with this. Chris, I don't know what your business, I don't know if you guys take Bitcoin or what, but we are in this transition period where we don't have all, the cryptocurrency doesn't quite have all the features that the traditional banking system has, but if you're even halfway into cryptocurrency, it's almost like the traditional banking system is it's pushing you out. It feels like it's pushing me out. If I can't even get loans through the traditional banking system, there's a part of me that's wondering, okay, well, what's really left with that traditional banking industry?
Well, you got a behemoth that you're working with in Wells Fargo, who's already had a standoffish opinion towards crypto, anything related. So
although this isn't crypto related, right? It's just
all they have to do is look into your background and
Do you think they're really blacklisting people? Wells Fargo?
I wouldn't say that they're blacklisting people, but they're probably blacklisting people. I don't know. I mean, they have to have a risk tolerance profile somewhere in there, and they probably, they look at the company that he works for, and they say, oh, this Kylan guy, even though he's got good credit, doesn't have enough to liquidate that we can get access to.
Right.
That's the whole thing. Is the loan is they need to have the power to liquidate over. What I also want to get back to is the two other things that you brought up was the business needs to have its own credit rating, and I'm having the same issue with Coinstructive because it's been around for 3 years now, and I've been running everything basically through a bank account, but not really getting credit. Building a credit profile
for the business.
Yeah,
that's the thing too.
It's an S corp, so it's getting all
Doesn't
of its
it
benefits.
Inherit it from the personal.
It you would think, but it doesn't.
Most banks I've seen, they want it to be personally underwritten, anyways, right?
Well, have you heard of Dun & Bradstreet?
No.
So they're a corporate credit ranking facility company, right? So I applied for a credit card with the EIN of Coinstructive, and what they decided, the company who I was applying for the credit card with rejected it. Didn't give me a reason, and then I get a call from Dun & Bradstreet who've been like, people are trying to look up your company, and the only thing we have in here is that you've got $700 worth of things that you paid for. And I'm like, oh, I spent a lot more money than that. And they're like, well, we don't have any record of that. And then they wanted to charge me $1,500.
How do you pay for things if you don't pay for the bank account? Crypto or?
I use a credit card for most of it, so I can get
your personal credit card.
No, I have a business credit card.
Oh, a different business credit card.
It's for the business. But it's through sole proprietorship.
Oh, and the Coinstructive isn't a sole proprietorship.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's an S corp, but that all funnels back through me as a person anyway. So it's really kind of it's all tied together essentially. So the credit for Coinstructive right now is actually based on Chris's credit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the problem. And then you got this company that says, well, we'll help you with that, but it's going to cost you $1,500 a year just to get to that. And maybe that is worth it if you can help build a credit history so that you can establish the company.
Yeah.
As opposed to but there's got to be other ways to do that. And I think that talking to maybe the local bank that I'm with and getting a credit card through them, right, as opposed to building it with Dun & Bradstreet and having to pay, but so that I can get a Wells Fargo or a Chase or a U.S. Bank or whatever, one of those types of guys to come in and say, okay, we'll give you a credit line as a business, knowing that I'm not really bringing in buckets of money and there's not a whole lot they can liquidate, right? So it's this catch-22, which puts us into the whole, why are we in the bank? What's wrong with the banking industry in the first place, right?
Yeah. Have you had any luck, or have you tried using credit unions at all?
No, I haven't. And, the other thing is, there's so many things that I can really complain about with the banking industry, but half the stuff is they want you to come in person, do this and that. It's like, honestly, my time is worth enough money where I can't be driving around, walking around, meeting with people. It's just not, I don't have time for that. That's
the
not what
bank.
I'm looking for. I want things that are lickety split. Like even with,
What about online? Like I got a loan 2 years ago online through. It literally took me like 30 minutes to like fill out all the stuff online, and then they got back to me within like 2 days. I'm like, yes, you're approved.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was the easiest loan I've ever got. And I mean, you see these commercials like Rocket Loan,
Yeah,
Rocket Mortgage.
that's
and
just
stuff.
starting, really.
That's the mortgage side,
To
but
pick
you
up.
can still get like, a personal loan based on your credit history and some basic information that you're probably better off trying that as opposed to going to the bank.
Yeah, I think that might be a Wells Fargo thing specific a bit.
Okay, yeah. Because another thing was obviously, I'm working on getting someone to construct a set without going into too much detail. And the guy that's doing it actually has Wells Fargo, so I was like, okay, cool. I'll pay you. You have a Wells Fargo account. I'll just send you the money. And then I start sending him the money, and they're like, I'm sorry, you can only send so much money to another person who has a Wells Fargo account. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, you know who both of us are. You have both of our social security numbers. Like, oh, you have to wait a month before you can send more than that. It's like, well, like what? Like, okay, so what I have to do is I have to go walk in to Wells Fargo, write down his account number, actually take money out of mine and then put it into his, because for some reason their online payment or money sending system is just, it has limitations for whatever reason.
Well, it's the thing that Wells Fargo has the responsibility, and banks have the responsibility for their customers, so they have to be really, really, preventative of stuff.
But
big-
what in
that
this
sounds
case?
like a banking. That sounds like a BSA, like Bank Secrecy Act, like limitation around what. Like, is it one of those platforms like Zelle or?
Yeah, that's exactly who
see,
it was.
I think there's just the company that they're using that's providing the intertransfer, like interperson personal transfers, is actually subject to like more stringent banking regulation than the bank itself, which means you probably can't do more than $1,000. Like, I don't know what they were, and I don't need to know what the limits are, but like there's certain tiers and information you have to collect, and they probably just like, we just cut everybody off at like X amount, so we don't have to,
collect anything.
We don't have to fill out any more paperwork. We don't have to have any more man hours. Like, you don't have to apply. But my other thing I want to get back to is you said crypto has gone down, so now is not necessarily the time that I want to use that for a loan.
Right.
But when you're looking at loan to value ratios, and if you're only getting, let's say, 50% on your loan to value ratio, so you.
What do you mean loan to value?
So
loan versus
how much you get out of that? So you have to put 100,000 to get 50,000 with 50%.
Right. So like if you buy a house, you're gonna get.
if it's a house,
you're gonna get 80% usually. Like they want you to come in with 20%.
Right.
Right down. So when you go into these loans with your collateral, they need to have a plus or minus window of what the actual value is in case it moves.
Drops,
right?
Of the stuff that I'm using the money on.
Yeah, so like if you put up, let's say you put up.
I don't know if they're going to want a podcast set.
Does anyone know the average
liquid-
for salt? The
luck
loan to
liquidating.
value ratio for salt?
We used to be 50%, right? I don't know what it's at now.
Yeah, I don't know either. But my thought is if you're going to actually use crypto as collateral to take a fiat loan against, this would actually be a good time to do it, especially if you think it's going to go up, because your risk of it going the other way is reduced, which means you won't have to either put more crypto in to cover, or you won't get liquidated.
Right.
And if you and you have a smaller amount that you loan.
But where do I
against, so
do
that
that?
you
If I can't do salt, then where else?
I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
For that.
What I was thinking of doing that.
I know a guy.
What I was thinking of doing that might
Is
be
his name Jacob?
I was thinking one way that you might be able to get around it is by playing around with the sort of the leveraging options on exchanges. So I was thinking, so if you had like, I don't know, to make the number simple, if you had like 10 Bitcoin, like $100,000 of Bitcoin or something like that, and you put it on the exchange, you could sell a portion and go long on the rest on the exchange. And so you'd have the same exposure, and you would also be able to cash out a bit of that in fiat. But you would get exposed to capital gains tax for the amount you got.
So would
I
that have
don't
to be?
know.
Would that have to be on a fiat to crypto exchange, or couldn't be a crypto to crypto exchange, could it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you'd be able to. You wouldn't. Yeah, you don't actually. So you're not selling. You're not withdrawing fiat from the exchange. You're just maintaining a long position.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so ugly, but you can totally do it. You can just walk through it, make sure you do it right, and do that.
I'd love to see you map out some of these ideas just so we could
I think it's
bring
possible.
them to a
I think
lawyer.
it's
I would
possible.
love to
He,
do
he
that.
thinks it's possible. All right.
I'm pretty sure it's possible. Yeah.
I want a whiteboard and I want a lawyer to be like, no, not this.
Well,
it shouldn't be legally weird. It's just financially weird. It's just a financial moving. hot
trying to
plate
do the
thing.
calculations while we're on air. Is
because
probably not,
basically you want dollar liquidity, and then you also want to exchange. You also want to maintain a exposure position on your crypto. You can do that with, and you need a 50%. So you would need a 2-to-1, margin.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it sounds like it gets very
Yeah,
like,
It's not too complicated. It's like 4 transactions.
All right,
They
so
just
let's
have to be in
move
sync.
on. I think Chris has a story for us about
Well-
money laundering. No, we're moving on. We're moving on.
So, in regards to the money laundering, I think that the position that I was reading this article recently
Right.
about money laundering, and it really goes into like where are things headed right now, and I think it's really this there's this whole concept around that it still has this negative connotation. I think that there's still it's either now it's not so much the dark web and internet and drugs so much, but it is now potentially scams and unregulated securities. So like people just keep peeling things back and looking at the negative side of things as opposed to how people are trying to help build
Right.
and disrupt and change things for the better, right? And so, Canada is in the process of coming up with their own set of regulations, which I think is great. I don't know what that's going to be exactly yet, but I'm sure that they're taking into consideration many of the same things that the U.S. has been, and what the SEC is saying about how securities are pretty much rampant, and there's not really a utility token that they've seen so far, so to speak. Not to say that they're all bad, right? I think there's plenty of great projects out there, and I think that there's a lot of people who are going to be, and I've heard this starting at the end of last year, that this year will be the year of the security token, right? That people will follow traditional regulation, they'll get a Reg D or even do like a Reg A plus and raise $25 or $50 million through normal channels, and instead of giving a stock, they'll give a token, right?
Do you think that's actually something that's going to take place and that it's going to be legally feasible?
I think so. I mean, like Delaware's already been doing, like building that bridge.
Well, Delaware's like the capital of everything there.
Right. I mean, they're doing it, right? So you have these other companies like Polymath and T0 who are leading the charge on building the actual platforms to list these tokens on. And I think right now everybody is playing in this field without a manual, right?
Right.
They're just like, okay, well, this is what
We want to do.
This is what we want to do, and we're going to try to map it out to be as safe as possible, or we're just going to go for it, right?
Well,
There's two philosophies.
Do you think it's going to happen first in the U.S. or? I mean, it probably, because it is a competitive environment, right? I think, does Europe have like one SEC or what are the real like competition? Like I think China has its own stock market. The U.S. has. What are the different hubs of regulation, like the competitive regulatory environments, basically?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know what the European Union has as far as like.
It's not a per country basis, right? It's probably like a whole EU-wide thing.
I should know this, but I don't off the top of my head.
But how many? I mean, because I think the whole world there isn't really that much competition in terms of regulatory like pockets. Like I think like China can do something crazy and the U.S. can't touch it, and the U.S. can do something and China can't touch it. But besides, I don't know, no one cares about Mexico's stock exchange. So.
Well, Australia has their own stock exchange. The New Zealand stock exchange is kind of like the market setter because they're the first one to open for the day. Right?
That's weird.
And then
That's luck.
Japan has always been an economic like hub.
They're separate. Their regulatory thing is separate.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
South Korea, same
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
Well,
South Korea might be a big thing.
Well, South Korea is like on their own, like they're marching on their own path right now regarding like the stringency to which they're holding companies who are trying to release ICOs and limiting people to be able to even
But
buy into
right.
These token platforms.
But then there's also some of them like because of the politics of the countries having good relations, they want to the regulation rules seem to sort of overflow into the other to sort of influence it really. Like China can really do whatever it wants and doesn't really care if the U.S. gets mad. But I think someone like South Korea or Japan, which have much closer ties to the U.S., might go along with if the U.S. really wants something.
I think what we're looking at really is this whole idea of when we talked about the Wild West before, right? There is really not a better analogy. I mean, people are just kind of doing whatever they're doing, and they're getting in trouble afterwards. And there's not really a reason to have to get yourself in trouble if you follow pretty much the rules that have been set forth. It makes it difficult. I get it.
How difficult does it make it? Is this something that's really like can the small guy,
No.
it's just a team
Yeah.
of 5 people, they're worth $500,000, can they do it?
You can do it, but not in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Yeah.
So the idea is that you would have it, okay, at least if they did it in the U.S., then that would kind of give a little bit more assurance to investors, since it would be an actual security, that there would be some sort of recourse if the proverbial, hit the fan.
I think that's what this whole thing boils down to is
Right.
consumer protection,
Right.
right? That it is such a small piece of the overall like financial picture of crypto right now, under what is it, 600 billion or
Right.
800 billion?
Crypto's like under 4.
Is it
right
all
now.
total right now?
No, yeah, it's under 4.
I stopped looking at price a while because when it started going down, I was like, I'm not
Well,
going to
now
look
it's
for
up
a
a
while.
little, now it's down a little. Yeah, it fluctuates.
But
Yeah.
it's relatively small, right?
Right.
On a big picture, and I think what they're afraid of is the next wave that goes from when Bitcoin goes from 10K to 40K, and then comes back down to 20, right? And how many other people are going to get pulled in, and how many other people are going to feel like they got screwed, and how
Right.
many more people are going to complain then? So they got to are you proactive in your penalizing and making examples of people now so that you have less trouble down the road, or is it so small that you're just going to have to keep smacking people around until the whole world wakes up to how to behave, right? Because I don't think we're getting really into the John Oliver thing.
No.
Not yet.
But part of in that video they basically talked about Ponzi schemes and straight up pyramids, right? These companies are basically telling people pump and dumps are cool, and they're promoting it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's that is obviously illegal.
Yeah.
However, it's not really in the crypto space because there's nobody enforcing it. I don't know, or there's nobody looking at it. Doesn't mean it's right, right? And you just get people who are trying.
okay?
The money is the driver, and unfortunately, it's going to corrupt people's good intentions, and it's going to cloud all of the good work that's going on.
Right. Do you think that by creating a framework that actually does regulate, let's say, securities or cryptocurrency like tokens as securities, do you think having it almost might be a good thing? Because if there's not much regulation and people are everywhere say, oh, this is not a security, or they're not treating it like one, if you actually have a framework where there is, like you said, consumer protection, in truth, that actually kind of gives companies a choice, right? Which route do they want to take? So in that sense, it could actually be a good thing for companies, because if they do want maybe to create their tokens in a framework that has more accountability, there's most likely going to be quite a bit more demand, I would think, unless you think those regulations would also be a reason that the token would not, how would I say it? They would have some restrictions that could keep the company issuing the tokens from actually doing well, from prospering, right? Because there are what regulations are, they do kind of tie your hands in certain areas.
One question I have, though, real quick, is are any brokerages looking at sort of interoperating with this? I know we have sort of the crypto world trying to interoperate with stocks, but I don't see. Well, I guess Robinhood a bit, but that's not really the same thing.
I believe NASDAQ had a pilot test that they were doing like over a year ago.
But it's very rudimentary, right? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no, I mean, nothing's live right now. But
Yeah.
to your question, I think what we're looking at is, yes, there's people that want to play by the rules, and there's always going to be people who don't.
Right.
And the fact that there are not really any rules established at all means the people who are trying to do good and are basically left out in the dark. I mean, they're basically stranded. And so everybody is doing something different, right? This is like part of the reason why I supported the idea of the ULC's Virtual Currency Business Act, right? Because there needs to be some sort of uniform definitions and basic template law that people can understand, and just so that they know when they're talking about multi-sig, that it doesn't necessarily mean that that company is a custodian if they use multi-sig. We need to focus on the fact that, like, this is an ever-changing industry, and that we can't just lock ourselves into one way until we mature. Just like you couldn't stifle innovation around the internet,
Right.
you can't do the same thing here, or you'll see it just blossom in other places. And maybe that's just what needs to happen. Maybe this is a slap in the face to wake up the United States and say, you are falling behind. You're already lower down the tier in the STEM category, right? So, like, if you also want to fall behind financially, where you've always used your military power to maintain your financial enterprise and superiority over the world, that might not last much longer unless you take a different stance and embrace and help build innovation, or let it foster, as opposed to over-regulating it to a point where you've actually handcuffed people while you were attempting to protect them.
Yeah, so you think it's kind of difficult to tell whether it would be something that would actually help increase prosperity within cryptocurrency in the United States, or if it were one that would drive off, how would I say it, drive away business, right? It probably depends on the details, right?
I think that's what they're probably dealing with and having conversations behind closed doors right now, is how do they balance that? It's a tightrope that they're walking, and you don't want to slip off.
I think the sentiment overall, though, in the U.S. is pretty positive, though. You work with that a bit more, right? But
it's really hard to say what the sentiment is. I mean, you get
Sentiment among whom?
You get people who are
I'm sure it's mixed, but
pro crypto and pro blockchain technology in government.
Right.
But most of them honestly don't know
anything about it.
They still don't understand. And when even the people who are voting on ULC, the Uniform Law Commissions, and have representatives from every state who help determine this, what we didn't want to see is another bit license, right? We already saw Washington State come out with their version of a bit license, which crippled some businesses, and they had to leave or shut down. What you didn't want is 50 states having 50 different cryptocurrency type of regulation or laws on the books where none of them matched, and then people were just like, well, screw it, we're just going to leave altogether because, one, it's already too difficult to raise money. Two, now we don't even know, we have to have 50 different licenses. We have it was just a mess. It was going to turn into a mess.
Do you think that the current administration right now in the White House, do you think that that's a positive thing? I mean, I think there was quite a bit of news on cutting regulations and stuff like that, but I don't know if that has any implication for that.
I honestly, I mean, I've heard that the current administration
do you think it would be different if
favor.
Obama was still here around, or
no? I really don't.
You think it would be the same?
I think there'd be the same conversation. I think that these are committee level decisions, and the multiple committees, obviously they can't even agree on what it is. So I think that we are at the mercy of bureaucracy that we've created. We're trapped in our own system to some degree, and it's hard to get out of our own way. In the meantime, these smaller countries like Estonia or Gibraltar, Cayman Islands, which is already kind of a tax haven, Singapore, right? These places are like, bring it on. Like,
Right.
we will help innovate and we will stay ahead of the curve. And that's their focus, where the U.S. is like, well, we need to wrap our head around this.
Yeah.
We're very much a Titanic, and you can't just change the direction of a Titanic very quickly, right? Which is why I think overall deregulation and is a good thing for the, if you can streamline the rest of the bureaucracy, for every one regulation you're going to add, you need to remove
another one.
whatever, 2 of them or something, right?
That's what I was talking about, the new administration.
So hopefully, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the next year? I honestly don't think they're going to make any decisions on cryptocurrency from like the White House administration is probably not going to make any type of decisions on one way or the other in the next 2 years. I think it'll be one of these committees or different branches like the SEC or the CFTC that comes in and says, all right, we've defined this and we see things this way, and here's our playbook. Go to town, have fun. We're watching you.
Yeah. And that's kind of one thing that during the relatively recent SEC hearing, there was kind of that recurring theme where they said, okay, we realize there are these ICOs. For the most part, or at least for the time being, we're going to focus on the obvious fraud that's going on. So it's almost like they are kind of holding back, at least for the time being, which I think probably makes the most sense for them at this point, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so another news story that I saw this week, I think we all saw it, was, well, actually, this might have started, about around a week ago or so. Some people who are not familiar with what MtGox is, they were at one point the biggest fiat to crypto exchange, kind of the same way that Coinbase is, except they were based in Japan, and I don't know if they had really that many restrictions on who they were able to buy and sell Bitcoin on their platform. This was back like, I don't know, 2012, 2013, kind of that time period. And they had, which was at the time, the biggest hack where essentially all the money got lost. I'm sure it's hundreds of millions of dollars at least. So they've kind of reared their head back up in the news. Actually, it turns out that as part of some sort of judgment related to the liquidation of their, to the hack and the liquidation of their company to try to pay some back to the investors, that they were getting rid of some of their Bitcoin that they did have. It looked like it was something like $400 million worth.
Yeah.
If I'm seeing this right. And some people think that that's one of the reasons that Bitcoin dropped. Really started not plummeting, but dropping pretty darn quickly about a week ago or so. But with as big as cryptocurrency is now, and as big as Bitcoin is now, do you think? I'll start with Jacob. Do you think is that enough? Is $400 million worth enough to trigger a panic or to cause a price decrease?
It's not the volume; it's more of the news headlines. I think.
Right.
I think it definitely might have had an effect. Just because it is a good chunk, but the volume itself isn't a thing. And even though we've had quite a bit of volatility, I've been looking at the longer trend of volatility on Bitcoin. We've actually been going down. Even though we're up for this year, overall we're much lower than if you look at like 2014 in volatility. If you look at the volatility index, pulling it up here. Yeah. So
it's down is the gist of it. It's down compared to,
and it's probably down permanently. As the market grows, we're probably seeing Bitcoin become a more stable currency over time. So these news events, even though they do have the potential right now to push it up or down, it's becoming less and less important over time.
Yeah, and apparently they still have some more Bitcoin saved up. It's kind of sad because from what I understand, the investors, the people who had their money lost, it was Bitcoin that they lost, and they're getting compensated in the equivalent fiat value at the time. So instead of making a bunch of money back, they're getting
a lot of people mad about that.
Essentially peanuts, right? So Chris, have you read up on this story at all? You've probably at least seen the headlines. MtGox rears its ugly head right back up. I'm kind of surprised anyone's getting any money back because I don't really think there's much left.
Aren't the lawyers taking a big cut though?
Oh, I'm sure they are. Yeah. I think Mark Karpelis actually gets a big cut too, and he was the guy that. Well,
Ran
he
the whole thing.
he ran the whole car into the ground, so to
Magical
speak.
tux. So I would say when you have to look at the daily volumes on how much Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash is being, recycled or the velocity each day. And if you're looking at a $6 billion a day, I mean, is $400 million over the course of a week going to do much? Depends on if it's all on one exchange, right? I mean, that's 1%,
Yeah.
right, of the.
Yeah. So it's my understanding, and this is another thing too, is, and I think this is goes to kind of Jacob's point, is I don't think they sold it on an exchange. I think it was like a
10%
over-the-counter market.
over the counter, correct.
Yeah,
so there's a
definitely.
good chance it didn't affect.
Yeah,
or you
400
wouldn't think.
million definitely went over the counter.
But if you leak that information in Asia, right, then yeah, maybe it does, because people don't know that it's not being dumped on public exchanges, and they're like, oh my God, everybody's selling.
Yeah.
Like,
That's the thing.
I got to get out now too, because it's going to crash, and I'll buy back in when it hits 7,500.
Yeah, and I did notice that a lot of people online had some serious issues doing basic math. They see $400 million worth of Bitcoin. They think that 400 million Bitcoins are actually being sold. They're like, oh my God, that sounds like so much. So I
400
think,
million.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, it's more than
Yeah.
exists. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that definitely goes to the point that sometimes investors are a little skittish, so to speak. So I guess I'm not completely surprised at this point that it would go down.
I like the fact that they're making them liquidate their Bitcoin Cash.
Are they
they're
really?
doing that as well?
Yeah,
That's funny.
that was part of the article, is that they're
Yeah.
selling Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. So,
but there's all the other forks too, I'd imagine. Yeah. But-
well, if
yeah.
they've done their diligence and separated their keys
Yeah.
properly,
Well,
then yeah,
What I'm thinking of
I think
is
all of that should go back to the people until they're whole.
Wouldn't that potentially make the case perpetually open though? Because if you had, let's say, in 10 years, someone makes a fork based on the coins of that block. That all of a sudden those keys would be worth money. You can just like throw money into old keys from legal cases from decades ago or something.
Sounds like a smart contract.
On Bitcoin?
Yeah, rootstock.
Oh yeah. Huh?
So it's live now too. So I mean,
is?
I think you could eventually program all those addresses and then have somebody be able to, if a fork happened, I don't know, potentially with a few clicks and some updates, you'd probably be able to import all those, and then everybody would just automatically get paid. So I don't know what the statute of limitations is. It would probably be on the judge if they could even fathom being able to do something like that, and then how much time and energy would it take to do that? But if you set something up where, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen in 2 to 5, 10 years, right? I mean, who knows how long the statute of limitations or how long they want to let something like that go? But if there's a dozen forks of Bitcoin, and it would be nice to get for some of those people to get a residual check of even just $1,000. $1,000 just showed up 4 years later, right? Like, that's pretty cool. We got to think we are, just because we're in such new times, that there are things that we haven't thought of yet that we will be able to do in the next 3 to 5 years, and maybe that's one of them, right? Where restitution can be paid through a smart contract based on any type of fork of that, because maybe that's the way for someone to avoid ever having to pay something back. They're just like, we're just going to fork this one and then abandon it and pick up on this new cryptocurrency, basically, because it's a fork. It's not the same thing. Well, that's all bullshit, because we know that it's really the same people doing the same thing. So why not hold them to that standard and make them, have to penny up?
Yeah, I mean, if they did it for Bitcoin Cash, they probably would have to do it for all the others too.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. Do you guys think that something like that is still possible? A hack of that magnitude? Like, do you think Coinbase? On one hand, you look at them, you're like, okay, they must have all their ducks in a row. But on the other hand, like, people were probably saying a lot of the same stuff about MtGox. I mean, we do see other types of hacks, but specifically, I guess we even see them with crypto to crypto exchanges, don't we? So with something like a fiat to crypto exchange, I mean, could you see something like that happening? Let's say Coinbase gets hacked, boom.
Does anyone know how much
50%.
Bitcoin Coinbase is actually holding on to? I'm getting terrified by it because they are doing all these institutional things, and if they get all this investment money, then Bitcoin skyrockets. This is going to be a huge Easter egg, and because there isn't a lot of big players out there holding on to a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah, there's definitely not. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I think it's a problem. Coinbase is a problem. It is a necessary evil for a lot of people right now because there are so few ways to go in and out of fiat. And I mean, heed the warning that you might be getting yourself into a mess of trouble based on working with Coinbase. Here's the thing about Coinbase.
Yeah.
When you use what people don't understand is there's different types of exchanges. People who are new to this game go, oh, an exchange is an exchange. Mm-hmm. It's an exchange, right? But like we know, and especially Jacob, that there's over-the-counter, which is you have two ways of kind of doing that. There's the in-person, there's the private, right? Or there's the guys like Coinbase who are offering a spot price and you pay a percentage on that, just flat. It's just that's what it is at that time. Well, what is that? That's a bottleneck because if the price moves and everybody's trying to buy or sell at the same time, you're not going to be able to get in. Everyone's basically clogging the network of the website, right? Or you just can't get individuals to meet you or whatever the issue is. But things are changing so fast that it becomes a bottleneck, and that's a problem. So the liquidity factor is a huge problem when you're using an over-the-counter exchange. If you go to the next type of a level exchange where we're talking about you still have access to fiat, but then you have access to more traditional trading tools, margins, shorts. You can set limit orders, right? So stop losses, things like that you can do in a regular like Fidelity E-Trade, something so that you can protect some of your volatility. And there's there's a book, right? There's some depth to the market,
right?
Where you can say, I want to put an order in like $200 or 2% or 15% below market price right now because I think that there's going to be a dip, right? So that's a whole nother type of exchange. And then there's the third type, which is the whole crypto to crypto only exchanges,
right?
And decentralized exchanges where you have to use fiat to buy a cryptocurrency to then which you can use the cryptocurrency to go into the what I call like the penny stock realm and play with these alternate cryptocurrencies where people are experiencing insane gains and losses, right? So I think what people don't get is that there's a lot of different levels to exchanges, and we're just starting to understand the limitations around each of those.
Is there any like integrated environment? It could even just be like an interface, that sort of synchronizes them between each other. I know, like there isn't any like Coinbase will never throw all those penny stocks on, but
no. But I think what you're starting to see is people who are becoming or looking to build like aggregation platforms to where they will become the institution to where you would like put your money. So, example, I'm the custodian company that's the aggregator. You guys are customers. So you're going to deposit X amount of dollars with me, okay, and then place your trades, but you're going to use our money to place the trade. So we have a pool of money that we're already ready because we're going to wait. We're not going to wait the 5 days for yours to clear. It just goes into the system.
Right.
And then you can use our capital to deploy it into the way that you want, right? And you can do it all from like one like user interface.
Yeah.
Where you can see Coinbase, Kraken, Gemini, Huobi. Like you can see international markets, you can see local markets, you can see over-the-counter prices.
Yeah,
you can kind of like
in the crypto space, it doesn't seem as synchronized as like more traditional markets.
Oh, it's definitely
Yeah,
not. It's
yeah.
because it's still. This
It's
goes back to
infant, right?
I mean, you're the volatility guy.
Yeah.
You know it better than anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
market wakes up in one corner of the world, and people are like, for some reason that day, they're freaking out, right? One thing changes, and then it
But
spreads.
isn't that
like
a huge loss
wildfire.
to the exchanges? I mean, this is getting a little off topic, but I mean, it's a huge loss to the exchanges to have to not be able to synchronize. I mean, because that's money like leaking out to day traders and random guys on the internet.
Okay, so yeah, I think there are a lot of things to look forward to when it comes to exchanges, but that is an area, like you said, Chris, there's a lot of nuances, especially now with decentralized exchanges coming along. I know there are a lot of decentralized exchanges that they're trying to get going. I know, what was it, Bitfinex was going to do something on EOS Finex or something. They had some stupid name for it. But we'll move on. We'll move on to some more, some more fun topics. So if I'm curious if you guys saw, John Oliver had a pretty long segment. John Oliver, the comedian, would call him an American comedian, but I think he's actually British. But his show's probably just done in the United States. But he did a pretty long segment about cryptocurrency, and I thought he was relatively fair, because on one hand he said, yeah, you get these crazy gains, but there's a lot of scams. I was like, okay, I can't really disagree with that. The one thing I will say is that he really brought forward some of the biggest nuts within cryptocurrency, and he poked fun at them. And unfortunately, in cryptocurrency, we have a lot of, not unfortunately, we have a lot of libertarians, and they're a little rough around the edges. So I think Brock Pierce made an appearance. He was talking about his Burning Man weddings and all sorts of I don't know what you call it, Burning Man-esque stuff. But then also they had Carlos Matos, the BitConnect guy,
He was
What's up? No, they showed him, and then they had, I think it's either Key or Peel came out later and essentially did another rendition of him.
That guy is so famous. Even if he goes to jail, like, he has a great career coming out.
I honestly think he's just like a patsy, so I don't really think
But
he was.
he's memed famous. I mean, it doesn't matter.
It'll be interesting to see whether someone else actually uses them on their project.
If he writes a book, I'm buying it.
I hope he pivots into some sort of career, because I personally have liked the whole BitConnect, all the BitConnect remixes that have come out with him too. It's like every week there's another remix, and I'm definitely a sucker for that. But I think the thing is, with the John Oliver segment, he went into it pretty well, but he's right. There are a lot of scams, but there is. I'm wondering if you guys think in the industry, is there a bit of a PR problem that we have? Because
What do you mean?
I mean, the people who are the thought leaders in the sector tend not to be well polished. They're not good on a mic. They're not good in front of a camera. And on one hand, it's like, okay, well, we don't want people like that anyway. We want people who have good ideas. That's fine. But if we're trying to reach the public, is that an issue?
Yeah, marketing. That's a thing any industry is going to have to deal with. I think that's just because we're I think marketing's done a lot better in the crypto space. I think just because of the whole ICO thing. The ICO is sort of all the new coins they're sort of having to deal with their own new marketing. They're not really bootstrapping in that Bitcoin ecosystem in the same way. Like Dash has their own thing with marketing.
Yeah, Dash is one of the few. Well, I mean, but they've had issues with their marketing as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
that
They started up from the ground up. It's not like they had like Bitcoin has been really well marketed just because it's been around longer and there's a lot more businesses in it, and there's a lot more polished faces and a lot more polished videos on it.
I would say that Bitcoin still has a marketing problem.
For sure.
Actually.
For sure.
Not just a PR problem, but a marketing problem, because no one owns it. Like, no one owns the
Is that a problem?
No one owns the responsibility.
decentralized.
That's part of the
kinda.
experiment, isn't it?
No one
It
owns
is.
the responsibility, though.
That comes with trade-offs,
of right. Like, so your path to adoption is actually much lower because it's so decentralized.
I mean, that's the same thing as the internet, though, right? The internet had a marketing problem, you could say.
Yeah. I also think this obviously parallels a lot to the internet. So I think the problem really boils down to the maturity of the ecosystem. Like, do you really need 10 times as many people using cryptocurrency right now? Are we even ready for that? Like, no, probably not, right? Like, we have to be kind of realistic about where we are technically.
I think it's a technological utility thing. I think playing around with it isn't bad for having too many people playing around with it.
No, I'm not saying that
Yeah.
there shouldn't be more people playing around and innovating. I'm saying actually using on a regular basis.
I feel like there's
we're not
hardly
ready.
I feel like there's hardly anyone actually using it. It's still a very small market.
Well, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
right? So, like, in order, though, to get there, we have to have more innovation. We have to have more iteration, meaning there needs to be more projects doing the same thing that are all basically adding to the overall knowledge to get to the goal, which is a working product of whatever industry you're in, whether that's insurance, real estate, even I've seen marketing related stuff, video content delivery. Like, there's all these different applications, right, around this technology, yet none of them are mature enough to go fully to like market, right?
Right.
And even the most mature still has the biggest issue in being Bitcoin, right? So if some of these companies, yes, they got it right because they use part of their raise or everything that comes in from part of mining or what rewards, whatever it is, they have a marketing strategy. Now, some of them needed to do that because they rebranded like Dash
Yeah.
from another coin that was pre-mined, right? And people don't realize necessarily what they're getting into because people don't look at the history, even though it's not that old,
Yeah.
right? 2 years ago, Dash is announcing, we are coming out as Dash. And then at the Miami conference. And this year, they basically sponsored everything,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, it's a big difference as opposed to the popularity of what happened with Dash versus how long it's taken for Bitcoin to get there, because no one actually is in charge of marketing Bitcoin. And nobody wants to spend their budget towards
Yeah.
helping market the bigger picture,
Yeah.
because even though everybody benefits, right, by the gains that Bitcoin has if you own some.
Yeah, I don't know what you could really do about that. I mean, you could try to get miners involved, but that's sort of a hard thing. What do you think, Kylan? How would you market Bitcoin?
How would I market? I think a lot of it's going to just be up to the companies that are really large, to be quite honest. And kind of like the same way that you have like open source software, and the companies that get really big, that really want to use the technology, are going to be the ones that are going to have to push for it. They're going to have to invest developers and money into it. At least I think that's how it could work. I don't like the built-in marketing stuff, the built-in slush funds. I mean, I made it pretty clear that I'm not a fan of that at all.
Yeah.
There was something though with the John Oliver segment. There's a point of me that has really gotten not jaded, but gotten to the point where I guess my skin has gotten thicker. It's kind of like, okay, like you don't have to like it. Yeah, there are scams. If you don't want to use it, then just don't use it. Like I don't really like. I'm at the point where it's going to get where it needs to go. It'll get there when it gets there. For me, it's almost not even worth it emotionally to get involved and say, oh well, I don't like that this person said that. These people get into arguments and they bicker about every little thing on the internet. I think for whatever reason, I've kind of outgrown that stage. But I remember there was a point in time where we just loved whenever Bitcoin was mentioned at all, and now it's happening often enough that it's not noteworthy anymore. And that's a good thing though, right? I mean, we've arrived to the next stage, so to speak. Okay, so another more I don't know what you call a socially related, social media related issue that came up during the last week or two.
Before
Oh,
we
yeah,
get
go
into
ahead,
that,
go ahead.
around marketing, I've always had this idea that I agree with you that the strategy needs to be kind of put onto the shoulders of, or the responsibility should be put on the shoulders of the companies who are using Bitcoin the most and profiting from that.
Right.
that they have a marketing budget for their company, probably, most likely, right? So why don't they just take a small? Why isn't somebody start a company, a marketing related company that's sole focus is to
Like a nonprofit?
help to promote Bitcoin specifically.
There are.
And you go around to all these big companies and ask for like 1 to 2% of their entire marketing budget. And if you can get the top 20 companies to give you 1% of their marketing budget, you're going to have a lot of money to do a national campaign or a global campaign on some level. And someone's got the expertise to be able to run that. And if you could get, $10 million a year or $20 million a year to be able to give this Bitcoin thing like a kick in the pants and pour some rocket fuel under it, I think you're going to see how much more adoption would actually increase.
And I feel like if it was something where we're relatively transparent, there were a list somewhere, okay, who's contributed and who hasn't. If it's something where you have these small companies that are pitching quite a bit of money, and then there's someone like I'm not going to use names, but like a really large company that makes all sorts of money in cryptocurrency, they're not contributing anything, then at least we as enthusiasts and people who are actually involved in the community, in the industry, we could kind of make that a little bit of an issue. We could give them, we could hassle them, so to speak. If someone's talking about working for this company, you say, well, guys don't really contribute. I mean, they are in the industry, they are making lots of money, but for some reason they're not contributing to this fund. So I guess you could apply social pressure, so to speak, right? And that would be a little bit more of a voluntary sort of solution to it, right?
You only got to get like 4 of them to be like, yeah, we'll do it, and the rest of them, you could point your finger at.
You're like, oh, well, these 4 did it. Yeah, I think that stuff like that could work, and I would hopefully someone is
for the greater good
is working on it, right? But yeah, I think you're right that it is something that could work, because isn't that kind of how things work in like
it's open source, give back to, right?
Yeah.
You're making so much money off of something that's open source just because you built a software platform around, keeping track of it, essentially. Like Coinbase literally just keeps track off chain for the most part, right? I mean, they've done some innovative stuff on their own side to do protection, but like overall, their whole job is to make money off of off-chain transactions.
Yeah, but there's a whole legal system. That's really what they're.
That's what I'm thinking. A legal system is a big part.
That's their job, dealing with the government and stuff, and their banking relationships.
So isn't that what like the traditional industries do? Like you see, this ad is brought to you by milk. It's like, dude, how does milk? who's milk? Like, what are you talking about?
I can't buy stocks in milk.
But that's like the industry, right? The milk industry, the vegetable industry, the bread industry. Like somehow they've figured something out
We
where
need
they
the
kind
NRA
of
of
work
Bitcoin.
together. Something like that. Okay,
Which goes back into lobbying, which is a form of marketing.
Yeah,
essentially,
really.
Right? So like,
are there? Is there marketing? Is there lobbying right now?
Yeah,
for crypto?
there's lobbying groups that are out there.
Are they that big though, or they're probably small at this point?
They've been around for years.
For crypto?
Yeah, they're in Washington D.C.
Really?
Yeah.
So are they doing
that's
good
awesome.
things, or is it like?
I mean,
what do you think? Like,
yes, they're doing good things, and yes, they're doing bad things in the fact that they're following traditional
Anti-competitive stuff, probably.
Like they're in the lobbying game.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't get more like. I mean, it's the exact opposite of what crypto
Corruption.
should be about, right? So they think they're doing the right thing because they're playing the game, and I'm saying, like, there's always going to be somebody who's going to play that game in the lobbying.
Yeah.
But they're basically making money. They're a nonprofit to I just don't see the point in lobbying cryptocurrency. Like, yes, you got to teach them, but lobbying in itself just seems like a misaligned. I don't even want to get into the politics of it. This is just that personally, I feel like
But for a
lobbying
corporation, it
is
makes
bad.
perfect sense, right?
But a corporation is treated as a person, so they have to do a PAC, which means you can only contribute X amount of dollars as a corporation, and then you have to ask all of your employees to contribute also.
Huh?
It's a really, so you're basically asking your employees to also to contribute so that you can contribute and look like you're the company is giving all of the money.
Asking your employees.
They can't make you, but they ask you, and that's what all the big corporations do. So, whether you're like an AT&T or Verizon or a Google, right? I'm sure they ask all of their employees if they want to. They can, because you can write it off as texting. Right?
100%?
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure.
yeah.
So
Okay.
it's just a misalignment use of funds.
Yeah, and I'm a little concerned when you start, telling politicians, oh, here's this cryptocurrency thing. So here's what we want you to do. It's like a lot of the second you start teaching them about something, they're just going to find ways to regulate. They're like, oh yeah, oh Bitcoin, that's what Bitcoin is. Okay, actually, you know what? Actually, we should do this. You know what I mean? It's almost something where I'd prefer to be under the radar when it comes to politicians. I don't know if that's possible anymore, but maybe just the fact that a lot of politicians don't know much about it. Hopefully, that's enough to keep them away, at least for the time being. Okay, so I was going to go back over another topic. And I started getting into the intro for it, but essentially, everyone knows Bitcoin and Bitcoin Core. They don't really get along. Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin Core. I got to be really careful about what I say here. But recently, there were some issues, and I was kind of curious what your guys' thoughts were on it. So somehow, the actual username Bitcoin on Twitter got how would I say it? Acquired, I think, acquired by someone who is a Bitcoin Cash supporter.
Oh.
Yeah. So
someone in air quotes.
Someone whose name is not Roger Ver.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it's Roger or not, but it's somebody who's a Bitcoin Cash advocate. So they were going on social media and doing the typical, what they were posting was essentially propaganda. It wasn't unbiased commentary or anything like that. But essentially, a lot of the Bitcoin Core guys or users on Twitter decided they would just start reporting the Twitter account, the Bitcoin Twitter account.
Yeah.
And just because of the way that social media works, essentially that Bitcoin username, that handle, got suspended for a while. At least that's from what I could tell. And there's also something similar on YouTube. I think Roger Ver got one of his YouTube videos taken down because, I would guess because people who are Bitcoin Core supporters decided to report the video for whatever reason. I'm sure their reasoning was like, oh, this is not true. This is just false information that's being spread. So I was kind of curious. I mean, on one hand, okay, there's freedom of speech. On the other hand, it's like, okay, you have social media platforms. They can kind of do what they want. They use their algorithms. Is this a little bit of a foul committed by some of the Bitcoin Core supporters or not?
I mean, I don't like the them trying to shut down the free speech of either community. And it's a little weird, because Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, I mean, they were a little bit opposing, they were outspoken, but I didn't see that much vitriol and that much trying to shut down the other side. I think Bitcoin is definitely higher stakes because it's just a bigger market,
right?
And also just the community around Bitcoin is more, especially at the time. Like Ethereum, now the price is higher and the market's bigger, and all the ICO stuff happened since then. But I think Ethereum was much more of a developer community early on, so I think he might not have had that. I think Bitcoin, you get a bunch of people who are emotionally attached to it, so I think that might be a big reason for it. I don't like it though. No.
Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Have you heard much about this story? It's a little bit more of a subtle kind of inside baseball, so to speak, story, but
no, it's not something that I normally try to keep up on because of how nuanced and political
Yeah,
it really is. And I feel like it's such a small faction of Bitcoin and crypto itself is such a small piece of the world right now.
Right.
And then this is such an even smaller piece that, yes, there's a lot of really important conversation, I think, around it because it's really trying to help shape and develop the future of the direction that we're going. But much in the way that sometimes our vote doesn't count even though we go vote, right? Is it really going to make a difference one way or the other if I pay attention to what's going on or not? Am I going to be able to influence how they think or change what they're... And maybe if I take more of a stance and an opinion, I could. But I got a lot of other things going on, and there's only so much you can spend time on during the day.
Right.
And to try to keep up on a squabble, that is probably not really... I mean, people love drama, don't get me wrong, and it's interesting and it's fun.
It is profitable if you can correctly predict the trend of who's winning and stuff. Because you can buy or sell. It's a market-based thing.
Well, and if I was
So
if I was more involved
trading,
on a daily,
Yeah.
like if I was a trader, I'd probably want to like know every minute like what these guys are thinking, because it may totally screw with me. Like, but if you're a hodler, then
Yeah.
it's not going to matter 3 months from now, really, right? I mean, some of the stuff you want to pay attention to, like when SegWit was happening and activation of SegWit nodes and BIP 91, and like when things are happening and like we're talking about forks, like, oh, if I'd have known, would I have bought more Bitcoin before because I would have got more BCH, right? Like, I mean, how do I know some of those opportune things to do if I'm not paying attention? So yes, it's good and bad in the fact that like I have one less thing to worry about and I don't get too sucked into the drama, but then sometimes you can miss out on things like getting a dividend, right? Like,
Right.
by getting Bitcoin Cash or another fork or something because you were holding at the time. So I think it's a give and take, that you should spend some time knowing what the people who are kind of leading the charge and that at the forefront are talking about and thinking about and working on. But I can't spend my time on a daily or even weekly basis kind of digging in. I should probably do it more often, but I don't. So that's where I probably am not contributing as much as to this conversation about it as other topics, because I try not to dig in too deep. But I think you can understand where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a part of me that wonders, okay, these guys are still bickering over this, like, divorce is what I would call it. And, I mean, Bitcoin dominance continues, well, more or less is in the long term is continuing to decline. So there, you almost wonder if
We're up in the short term, though, definitely.
in the short term. Check back tomorrow and it might change, you know what I mean?
But Bitcoin Cash is dipping, like generally just with exchange volume and use. So that's a trend that's going to probably stay.
Okay, so I think we've talked quite a bit about some of these stories. You guys have any specific stories you wanted to cover?
I have one.
Cool. Give me 1 second. Okay, so
It's real quick because I have to actually go and the story is I have to go put money in the meter
okay.
because my 2 hours is up.
Oh yeah,
2 hours is up.
I had Jackson put it in for me. I just told him where the car is.
Oh, you should just tell Jackson to do it for you.
Jackson.
See, guys, the problem with having your studio downtown and even living in downtown is whenever someone wants to visit you, they have to figure out where to park. They have to get these parking meters going, and it's a hassle.
You know, funny story. When I was working at Urbits, or as an intern, I would always park all the way outside San Diego, where all the homeless people sort of are. So there's no paid parking, and there's always free parking available. It's just about a 15-minute walk in.
Yeah, so now they have, I don't know, to all the audience out there, I don't know where you guys live, but some of you are in San Diego, though. They have these little things called like Lime bikes. They have all these, I don't know what you call them, ride sharing kind of, these like...
those are super overpriced.
These electrics super overpriced. It's
Aren't
like
they?
$1 for like 10 minutes, man.
What?
Yeah, dude. So you could
Not
park.
making money?
You could. Well, I mean, how long do you need to like ride on the darn thing for? Once you park it, the ride ends. You know what I mean? Like unless you're going to Arizona.
$1 for 10 minutes.
For 10 minutes.
I do the math on that per minute, and I'm like, that is.
You can get anywhere like on one of those in 10 minutes.
I mean, I don't know. I guess for downtown it might make sense. I just bring a bike with me.
You just bring it. It's cheaper than parking would be, I would say.
I would like a subscription if you could like subscribe and then get a better price. That might make sense. But that was a huge thing in China though. But I think they're cracking down on that a bit.
Got it.
The bike share programs.
Yeah, well, they're doing it here, and it's actually a lot of fun, but it seems kind of dangerous. Every time I go on one of these scooters, I'm just ready to to crash. Do you actually have a story, or was that your story that you need?
That was my way of trying to get out of.
Oh, okay. You're good. So how familiar are you guys with Light Pay?
I read about it.
You know the basics, right? So I'll keep it very generic. And so for the audience there who are watching or listening, well, I guess if you're listening, you're probably not listening live. But we are starting to field more questions and comments. So if you're in the...
I wanted to know, I got really intrigued. You said, Chris, you said that Rootstock is live now, right? The main net. I've been like refreshing their page so often, but they
Whose page is this?
Rootstock. It's Ethereum clone on top of Bitcoin. I've all even for the longest time I've been really holding out for them. I want to see smart contracts on Bitcoin.
RSK.co,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's so you get Ethereum type of functionality on Bitcoin without having to go to a different altcoin.
You can literally port Solidity contracts directly.
I think the old version, right? Not the new. I think the
No, you can't.
the latest Ethereum. So like the newest Ethereum contracts you can port straight over.
Yeah, it's my understanding.
The latest ones.
Solidity. Well,
Because I know they've
anything that's
updated.
written in Solidity.
Solidity. I forget. Yeah. Okay. That might make sense then.
All right, as I was going to say, so for the audience members out there, we are starting to field questions. So if you want to, I know we should have announced this at the beginning, and we actually had an issue with the stream at the beginning here. So normally we'll probably go live and we'll have like 5 minutes or 10 minutes at the beginning where we're still getting ready, and we'll kind of let you guys kind of interact with us, maybe ask us some questions, but also just in general, we will be taking questions and comments related to the stories. And then at the end, we can take some that might not be related to any of the stories that we've mentioned. So for those of you not watching live, you should, or not listening live, you should consider watching the broadcast live, which will usually be on Tuesdays. We're still kind of changing things around, but within the next couple of weeks, we should have like a set schedule that we're going to try to stick to. I know we've had issues doing that. It's hard getting, 3 people in the same room at the same time.
From 2 different countries.
Yeah, there you go. From two different countries as well. So LightPay, Ian Morgan, who's I'm pretty familiar with, one of my acquaintances here. He's actually asking about LightPay, and LightPay was obviously like BitPay. For some reason, the guys at Litecoin not exactly creative with the names of their projects, so they decided to name it LightPay. Yeah, and essentially they were trying to team up with Visa, and a lot of people were really excited about it. And essentially, it misfired. It didn't go through. It got delayed, and they didn't say how long it was going to be delayed for. It's just it's been delayed essentially indefinitely. So they were supposed to team up with Visa, and there's a part of me that wonders why would Visa even want to be a part of this, or why is Litecoin even trying to team up with Visa? And there's a part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me, thinks that maybe Visa actually kind of like, how would I say it? They sabotage the project. Do you think something like that's possible, or do you think if you're Visa and Litecoin comes to you, Charlie comes to you and he says he wants to help with payment services?
If Charlie goes to Visa, or Visa comes to Charlie?
Well, Visa has no reason to go to Charlie because Visa's the big boy here. They're the ones that need to be courted.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes sense to have a team up between, let's say, Litecoin and for Visa to partner with Litecoin? Does that even make sense? Is it in their interest?
Maybe. I think. I don't know. What would they really have to do? They just have to allow them as a merchant, right? That's all that Visa has to do, and Visa wants as many merchants as possible. They want the highest transaction volume.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the integration would be like. I don't know how BitPay does it. It probably wouldn't be like a card, but maybe you would.
Well, BitPay is different, right?
I don't know.
One thing I did want to see that's sort of on this, the payment networks and hooking up with Visa and stuff. I don't know if it already exists, but is there any with BitPay you go from crypto to fiat when you make a purchase, but is there anything where a merchant can accept traditional payments and receive crypto automatically?
I've never even heard of that. That sounds cool though. I'd be down for that. Boom, Bitcoin.
Yeah. If a merchant doesn't have a bank account, for instance, but they do want to take credit cards, and they don't have any interest in, that would be a way for them to still accept, credit cards and have, hook into the big world that Visa has, but still be able to, control their funds without having an intermediary.
Yeah, I suppose they could. Someone could still do it manually, maybe, but like obviously that'd be a hassle. It's like, okay, for today I got $500. Let me go buy $500 worth of Bitcoin or Litecoin, but maybe that'd be too much of a headache.
Yeah, and I was thinking of this in like the context of like in Mexico, like we have a bunch of and even in San Diego, we got a big Mexican community. We have a bunch of they're called swap meets, and they have a bunch of these merchants who don't really want to integrate with the banking system, but they could use crypto as a way to just get cash, get cash in the sense that they don't have to go and withdraw it from a bank and deal with tax liability and
Keep
things
it on
like
their
that.
mattress.
Yeah, that too. I mean, I don't know how many would actually want to hold it, but a bunch of cash merchants could take it in that sense, and then I'm saying and a bunch of them can't. Like a bunch of illegal immigrants, for instance, they wouldn't be able to accept credit cards and have it put into their bank account. I know there's a bunch of loopholes for it, but it's not exactly a safe thing for them to do. So,
Well, back in January, Visa ran into a big problem with one of their card issuers around cryptocurrency. So,
card issuers? Or?
yeah, like they had a card issuer, a company called Wavecrest.
Oh, I think
Right.
I heard of them.
This was basically CryptoPay, WireX, 10x, Bitwalla. All these guys had cards issued through Wavecrest, and Wavecrest was like, Visa's like, dude, you guys are not following the rules that you're supposed to around issuing these cards and how you're supposed to react, and they basically shut them down. And that was the main issuer of like not prepaid, but like a combination of anything that had a Visa logo on the card, right? And so whether it was prepaid that you're cashing out crypto and they're loading the card for you, or if it
What
was
rules were they breaking?
I don't recall exactly. I think it had something to do with like the amount of money that they're holding in regards to the amount of like crypto. They had to have something about like the equal amounts.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why Coinbase moved out of Hawaii, because they would have to hold the same amount of cash against all of the people who had Bitcoin balances on their platform. So imagine that's fine when, let's say, Bitcoin is 1,000, but when Bitcoin hits 10,000, you have to have 10 times as much cash on the hand. Like, that's insane. That no one can do that. So they basically said that no more of these cards are going to go out. So I don't know. Maybe that's where LightPay had their issue, was like, we got all the paperwork signed, we're ready to go, we're going to do this, we're in process, and then it was like, just shut it down. So
I guess it's better to halt it than try to jump and then get cut the next week.
I'm the only guy who got a LightPay card type of thing. Right? Like, they only issued 50 of them, limited.
Make a limited one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm curious, are you guys going to any events anytime soon? I know I went to some, obviously I went to some of the last few months as we launched the Edge wallet. But now that we've launched, it's been a little bit more of a focus on, at least for me as a developer, to actually work on more development, fixing bugs, right?
How's that going along anyways?
It's going along well. I think we just did an update. When was this? This was last week, I think, the end of last week. And we have I'm not supposed to give deadlines going forward. But we have another one coming out relatively soon. Obviously, the one thing that I want added, and I think everyone wants added, is being able to buy fiat, or buy crypto with fiat. So I'm like, let's get that in there ASAP.
Are you able to go directly into a token or altcoin?
Not
yet.
I think you mean it would most likely just be Bitcoin. I'm not positive.
It would be a simple integration though with Shapeshift though, right? No, just crypto Shapeshift.
Yeah, hypothetically we could do something like that. You don't even
need permission from Glider or Kraken or whoever you're
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean hypothetically, I suppose we could do something like that. It's just extra work.
Yeah,
though I don't know. Yeah,
it'd be really cool though.
It would be kind of a cool feature. I'll actually bring that up. Another thing because for me, obviously, if we generate revenue from transactions, whether it's crypto to crypto or fiat to crypto, then the big thing is getting it in as many hands as possible. So internationalization is what we're working on too.
Well, what's your bottleneck on those things?
We need to have for every area of text that we have in the app. We need to have it translated in any language. But we created that app with that in mind, so it's I think it'll happen sooner than people think, I guess,
Yeah.
which would be really exciting.
You'll be probably one of the first Bitcoin wallets that's in all languages, right?
That's what I'm thinking. I don't know of any others that even that even consider it. So obviously, once we have that, then we'll have to actually push so that people know that this is actually available, and hopefully we'll have people in each language be able to take a look at it and let us know, is it translated correctly or not. You know, well, I'll have to call my Afghani friend and. I'm kidding. I don't know.
What other big partners or integrations are like on the horizon for Edge that you're excited about?
Are we talking like currency plugins, or
currency plugins? I mean that's. I think that'll be added as it
I'll
goes.
be
but anything that might add new functionality.
Let's see. If you had to crypto is a big thing. Edge login, we're always getting more partners with that. I don't keep close track on that just because there's a lot of there's just a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people. So I don't keep too close track to that. The currency plugins are kind of what interests me a little bit more.
Is there any way? Because I mean, Edge really works in a lot of its backend, sort of like LastPass. Is there any sort of? I think. Is there any like plugin or thing or way to use it with existing services? It'd be nice to just have like a simple solution that just automatically makes it so you can log into Facebook with Edge.
Oh, like literally current apps, like
Current?
that aren't related to cryptocurrency or what?
Edge login isn't necessarily crypto related, right? It's just a login.
That's true.
It's a
just
login
like
system.
private data.
Yeah, it's private data. So that's what I'm saying. If you could do that, that'd be like really, really awesome. And then you could have your better user experience for your actually supported, using your proprietary system.
Yeah, I think that is the long-term goal. But I think we have to get the integrations, the first few integrations, which are cryptocurrency related. I think once people see how this works and it's working well, then things could go well, hopefully. Cross my fingers. Okay, so I think that's enough on the topics. Like I said, tune in next time. Hopefully we will be... Hopefully we should be on next Tuesday as well.
You were talking about current events and or like events that we're going to be going to. You said you're not going to any.
Oh, yeah.
I got if I could make
let's hear it.
make a few announcements. So actually this upcoming week, the whole week, actually there's events going on in Puerto Rico. One of our guys from Coinstructive is down there. His name's Tim Francisco. He's running around with some of our clients, or at least one of our clients, Impact PPA, that's down there doing an energy project. And there's 3 different events going on down there in Puerto Rico this week. It's D10E, I believe, which is actually today. And then there's blockchain.
Well, okay, hold on. What does D10E stand for?
It's a decentralization.
But if it's decentralized, okay, never mind. I don't know if the numbers add up. So where's this?
All this is happening in Puerto Rico right now.
In Puerto Rico.
D10E, Blockchain Unbound, and Coin Agenda.
Have you been to Puerto Rico yet?
I went last year in May, before the hurricane.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't been back post hurricane, but I probably will sometime soon.
Is it just open flights? Anyone can just jump in.
Southwest flies there.
Yeah. Probably pretty cheap tickets right now, huh?
I honestly I don't know. I haven't looked at flights, but I think it's pretty normal. The other thing that's happening later this week in San Francisco that I'm going to be attending is Token Fest, and I'll be there with another one of our clients, Koala, who's building a stable cryptocurrency project. They're actually in testnet right now, so that's actually exciting. I was running a node for a while on my computer at home, so that was fun. Haven't done anything like that for a while. And then that Saturday when I get back, actually downtown, there's an event by, I think it's the Legal Hackers Group, which is people who are lawyers who are also into coding and technology and finding kind of the mesh and the meld between the two kind of environments. Right. So what they're doing is they're doing a computational law and blockchain fest with a hackathon that starts at like Saturday morning with some introductory stuff and like how to build a smart contract and things like that, some kind of hands-on stuff. And then the whole afternoon, I think starting from 1 o'clock on Saturday till 1 o'clock on Sunday is the hackathon. And this is like a decentralized event that's happening in numerous cities around the world all at the same time. and it's all part of the hackathon's all part of that. So people are actually competing against other people in other cities as well at the same time. So that's being put on here, and that we got that hosted through the Meetup group. So if you're not doing anything on Saturday and you're in the San Diego area, come on down. Look for that in the Bitcoin San Diego Meetup group, and come check us out. The next following week, there's actually I'll be speaking at what's called the MIT Enterprise Alliance, or Enterprise Forum. They are a group of people who are trying to help bring education to existing companies and people who are just trying to wrap their head around
Education, like
just basic information, right? I mean, think about at a certain point in time when the internet was starting, companies were like, "Oh, we need to have an internet strategy. Oh, I don't even know what the internet really means. How is that gonna affect us?"
Gotcha.
And I think companies are in the same spot where they're like, their board of directors, their senior level, C-level type people are like, "We hear about this blockchain stuff all the time. It's not going away. People are asking us, what is our strategy?" And we're like, "We don't know because this is new to us. We know as much as the guy who's asking us, what are we going to do?" So how can you make a decision whether or not the technology is either good for your company or bad for your company if you just don't even know?
Yeah.
Right. So that's where this kind of helping to bridge that gap, I think, is where we're going to try to help fit in. And so we'll be doing an event with the with MIT Enterprise coming up. I also I'm going to start working more with the San Diego Startup Week group that's putting on an event in June and helping to volunteer and build more out of the crypto track. So
All right.
two years ago,
That
there
sounds
was
fun.
one talk. Last year, there was like 3 talks. Edge did one. One of the lead developer at Edge, William, came and did like a tutorial of like, bring your laptop. We're going to go through code. I don't think he slept for like 3 days leading up to that point because he wanted to get it perfect.
Yeah.
He doesn't
And-
get much sleep in general. I can assure you.
That sounds like a total developer.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's going to be another way to like get involved with the community and really help put San Diego more in the mainstream, because we're a big city where we got a lot to offer, and we're kind of like flying under the radar in the crypto space. So I just recently found out also that the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance is actually here in San Diego now.
What do they do? They just
They're
enterprise applications for Ethereum.
Exactly.
So when are they here?
They,
Or are they always here?
they're here now.
Okay.
They have a representative I just found out this last week who is working with.
Are they part of the
with-
Ethereum Foundation?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're a standalone industry organization. I don't know.
Industry organization.
Yeah, it's like saying I'm a nonprofit and you get like a 501c3 or whatever. They have a delineation that says
Industry. Yeah.
they're an industry organizations,
Gotcha.
just like milk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So their whole purpose is to help benefit these other companies who are trying to learn about it and connecting those people. So another good place for Coinstructive to fit in on the educational front and help these companies wrap their head around what's going on. So there's quite a few things that are coming up in the next 2 weeks specifically. So if you need more information, you can reach out to me through Twitter at DJ Kinkle, Kinkle, or through @Coinstructive, or you can head out to the Coinstructive website and email us through our contact form there.
Cool. That's awesome. Sounds like you're a busy, busy man. I've seen you at many conferences. You must be racking up a bill with some of those. Some of those tickets ain't cheap.
Yeah, I need to
Yeah.
get more onto the speaking side of those things, so I'm not
There you go.
buying the tickets.
It's an investment. You got to put on an Edge shirt. You can work at the booth for a little bit.
I've done that. I've volunteered. I wear my Ed shirt all over the place. I actually need to get some my
got it
own
on the
t-shirts
computer.
now.
Got it on the
Yeah.
computer.
Yes. So actually, it's funny. I almost forgot about this, but I actually have created my own meetup group, the San Diego Blockchain Development Meetup. And we are going to be, I think I can actually announce this because I think it's pretty much set in stone. We're going to start off with our first event. I think it's going to be on April 4th, which is a Wednesday, probably around 6 or 7 p.m. And I think we're going to have Eliran, our developer at Edge, talk about interacting with the blockchain and the Bitcoin network with JavaScript. So that's another thing for some of you who are in San Diego and want to learn a little bit more about blockchain tech or blockchain development. Keep an eye out for that, and keep in mind that we have limited space, so I have a feeling we might get past capacity, but we're going to limit it to 30 because it'll be more of a workshop, so people will actually be able to kind of try to follow along if they can. So I'm pretty excited about that, and that way we can kind of help nourish the blockchain development community in San Diego. And if someone like Coinstructive is looking for a blockchain developer, hopefully having a meetup like this will give them better access to those sorts of developers. Because right now, blockchain developers they're very rare, and there's just a lot of demand, and there's just not enough of them. Yeah. So hopefully also if people want to learn how to develop on the blockchain or interact with blockchain libraries and whatnot, hopefully my meetup will become a resource for them. But I don't know even the first thing about organizing a meetup, so maybe I'll have to pick Chris's brain because he's been at it for several years.
Absolutely. Just reach out, whatever you need help with.
All right, I think that's enough for tonight. So until next time, guys, this is your captain and your crew wishing you fair winds and following seas, guys. Set sail.